bring on our next guest. A name, if you don't know, you should know. Alex Mashinsky is the founder and CEO of Celsius, and there he is. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today on the first ever Benzinga Crypto Festival.
Great to be with you, and I did one of your events in New York before COVID. That was I think 2017 or 2018.
Yeah, the in-person events are more fun, aren't they?
Yeah, so definitely I missed those. It was a room full of people. I think it was 46th Street and 6th Avenue somewhere. It was like
Tribeca 360, I think, maybe.
Anyway, it was fun. So looking forward to doing it.
All I know is they frown upon me drinking on this stream. So it's the in-person events are way more fun. So if you can, Alex, before I go, if you could just make sure to share your screen, so we can get your presentation going, and then we'll let you do your thing.
Perfect.
There we go.
Yep. Thanks everybody for joining. Again, Alex Mashinsky, CEO of Celsius Network, and we believe that all roads lead to decentralization. I'm going to talk about MOIP, or money over IP. How do we get there? Move all the money to run on the blockchain. In my experience, specific experience, being one of the first guys to build voice of IP, deja vu all over again. So here we go. We are currently TradFi, or traditional finance, is where we're all at, right? So basically all the money in the world transacts through this pyramid in which basically 1% gets to control all the money in the world. About 3% of the global GDP, or several $1 trillion, are managed through this platform. It's been around basically for 700 years, since the Medicis invented double entry systems, and now we're transitioning to this thing called CeFi DeFi, where it's really a triple entry system, right? It's basically a regular double entry with a ledger, a public ledger, which makes it a triple entry system, and in which, again, it's more of a circle. Everybody has the same opportunity, same access. We normalize and we measure people based on their contribution to society. Did you add a protocol? Did you add value versus what layer in the pyramid you're part of? So we all live in this world of free money, right? You might not see a lot of it, but the printer is printing. And both in Japan, United States, Europe, all-time record of new money being added. So definitely a lot of craziness out there with all this stuff going on. And we need to figure out a solution. And unfortunately, the solution is not to fix the old system, to fix this smoky factory, but rather build something new, right? Build a renewable resource, which is limited supply money, which replaces exactly this chart that you see here. This is how much money was printed. You can see we went off the hooks since 2009. The gray represents a recession. And you can see more recently with COVID, we just went crazy, right? We printed, since 2009, we printed 76% of all the money, all the dollars that ever existed in history, right? So more money in 10 years than in 200 years. And if you look at history, you will see that every 100 years or so, a different empire shows up, right? With some unique trick, and basically it lasts for about 100 years until it starts devaluing and debasing its currency. So history keeps repeating itself, and we think that this time is different. The United States somehow has some kind of magical power, but it's not. I mean, really, when we went off the gold standard, the Bretton Woods Agreement, 1971, we basically are running an experiment. Just like Bitcoin is a 12-year-old experiment, fiat, or the dollar being a fiat currency, is also a 50-year experiment, not much longer. So what's going to replace it, right? Are we going to see something like Bitcoin? Are we going to see CBDCs like the Chinese yuan? Or there's going to be some kind of a corporate version that comes up and replaces traditional money? Today, global assets are at about 255 trillion. And guess what? The total debt, global debt, is actually a bigger number, right? So most of our we're drowning under debt, and the reason all these central banks are really worried about inflation and worried about GDP being zero or negative is that they know that this mountain of debt is not going away, and they cannot afford to not have GDP. So they rather give you some helicopter money and create fake GDP than let the economy shrink. So also another way that the banks are solving this is by allowing the large banks to consolidate. So this is the banking system in 1990. All the banks that used to have more than 100 billion. Today we ended up with 4. And you can see in gray how the interest rates have been coming down very, very rapidly. So as the banks consolidated, they magically paid you less and less for your money. All these banks have record all-time profits, right? So if they can afford to pay you higher rates, they just choose not to, right? They choose to give all the money to their shareholders. Again, if you're looking at us since we went off the gold standard, if you were in tech or if you were in finance, you did exceptionally well. If you were in any other part of the economy, you went sideways. Your income did not improve basically since the 1970s. So what's so special about money over IP, right? We have all these amazing assets like NFTs and stable coins and cryptocurrencies, utility tokens, security tokens, right? And we have a new set of rails. This is about a completely different infrastructure on which we can innovate. Today, DeFi and CeFi innovation is running 1,000 times faster than Wall Street. And as you know, the joke is that the last thing the banks invented was the ATM machine, and ATM has been around since the 80s. So definitely very, very little innovation there. And, there's a picture of me and my wife. Somebody created this American Gothic, if you're familiar with the original shot. So kudos to the Celsius team for inventing yield on the blockchain. Yes, a year and a half before Uniswap, before Compound, before all these companies that you think of, Celsius was the first one to pay yield on, now it's 43 different assets, and first one to also allow you to earn in kind or in a token, right? So before Uni, before Comp, the first token you can earn when you use this platform was the Cell token. Also the best performing asset last year, according to Masari, and Celsius now paid over $760 million in yield and interest to over 1 million customers, right? So definitely the largest farmer out there, and still no incidents, no hacks, no losses. And really, again, CeFi and DeFi are two sides of the same coin, right? 95% of the population doesn't know how to do farming, doesn't know how to lend to institutions or how to do margin borrow. And Celsius, through these platforms, basically aggregates all these assets. Today, we manage over 21 billion, and we create the yield. Most of the yield goes back to the customer. We also recently launched with Chainlink. We worked together for about 2 years to create CCIP, or the cross-chain interoperability protocol. Celsius basically today runs on 14 different blockchains, more than anybody else. And we create yield on many, many different chains. So as a user, through one account, you don't have to farm, you don't have to move around, you don't have to pay gas fees. You get amazing access to basically yield on all the different blockchains out there. So what's so special about the blockchain, right? Well, it is not like your central bank. It is not like your commercial toll collector, your Goldman or your Morgan Stanley. Yes, it's super safe, it's decentralized, but it's expensive and it requires this unique consensus. Very slow, right? Bulky, and it's really good for one thing. So if you use a blockchain for something that it was designed for, it's going to do very well. If you try to take this tank to work every day, that's not going to work so well. So really, it's all about figuring out what is a blockchain good for. And when you dig into kind of the onion, right, you see that, okay, we built all this infrastructure, different blockchains. We have about 200 different experiments, different blockchains. Then we created all this middleware on top of it. And now we're really experimenting with different dApps, right? What are all those dApps? So Celsius one great example of, we think the second killer app, if the first killer app is store of value for Bitcoin. The second killer app is yield, right? And Celsius does that better than anybody else. We also help bring institutions and asset managers, pension funds, because they are the borrowers in most cases. So we lend them the assets, we collect yield, collect interest, and give most of that to our community. Again, we support 3 different family of assets. If you're coming from your comfort zone, from your dollar-denominated world, we have 3 different gold assets. We support 13 different stable coins like Tether, USDC, USDT, and so on, as well as crypto assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and each person can basically decide how far from the comfort zone they want to move. And a lot of people are telling me, well, it's very volatile. This crypto thing, I don't know how to deal with it. It's really too much volatility for me. So I'm going to try to explain it a little bit of what we've seen over the last 12 years, right? So again, after Satoshi invents the Bitcoin and he tries to pass the baton, think of it as a 4-man relay race. Like the first people that come are the cypherpunks, the anarchists. There's not enough of them, so they have to hand off the baton. And here come the libertarian to try to save the world using the blockchain. Again, not enough of those either. And each time you have this handoff, the third one was the speculators in 2016, 2017. Each time you hand off the baton, usually you lose users and a Bitcoin drops between 50 and 70%. So this time we're handing it off to the institutions. And again, we saw a drop of the baton. We're seeing again FOMO right now with Bitcoin nearing all-time highs. But really, it's the same cycle again and again. And another way of looking at it again, we lived in a centralized world. Then we went to Web 2.0, mostly marketplaces. And now this decentralized blockchain, Web 3.0, is going after all the money in the world, right? So it's kind of trying to eat everything out there. And the question is, what really works best? How do you create this world where you have a decentralized services, token economics, secure and immutable blockchain? How do all those 3 work together and create value for the community? Right, so I try to summarize it for you in a quick formula. E equals MC square. Ethereum, E stands for Ethereum. M is not mass, it's members. And C is credit, right? Not the speed of light. Here we use credit. If you have credit and membership, you're going to create something as powerful as Ethereum and really be able to change the world, right? Ethereum today is the largest platform as far as developers and other things. And you're going to drive this, again, Pac-Man eating all the different asset classes. You're going to drive this migration going step by step and building the future, if it's security tokens or NFTs or stable coins and so on. So there's a lot of opportunities. Again, first step was Bitcoin, second step was Ethereum and the smart contracts, which is kind of the foundation of what Celsius is using. And now we have all these additional services on top. Traditional banking model, again, you get less than 1% when you deposit your assets, but when you use the Chase Manhattan credit card, they charge you 24%. So they take your neighbor's dollars, pay him 1%, lend it to you for 24%. The bank keeps 95% of the value. All Celsius does is pays the user 7% and charges you 9%. 80% goes to the users, right? So these are the actual rates you can borrow today on the Celsius platform. And again, we have a huge amount of users, 43 different assets. And like I said, we paid over $760 million in yield to our community. All you do is download the app and everything else is self-explanatory. Forbes ranked as one of the top 3 blockchains out there. Again, Masari ranked as the top platform out there. And again, just quickly going through these, I'll try to answer some questions as well. Exchanges, socialized losses, crypto exchanges, right? Celsius Network is socializing profit. No one has ever lost money with Celsius. We pay yield every Monday. You don't have to do anything, right? Decentralization is a war between toll collectors and users. 100 million users, how do we bring them? Less volatility, more utility. Bitcoin is doomsday insurance. Stable coins in Ethereum are everyday source of interest, something you can't get anywhere else. Crypto, replacing the middleman with middleware, right? That's all we're doing here, replacing toll collectors with middleware. Bitcoin replaces gold, Ethereum replaces the banks, right? And living with the banks is like living in a bad marriage, right? So if you like that, keep going at it. Keeping it here. Dollar. The dollar is a bad store of value, a great form of payment. Bitcoin is exactly the opposite. Bad form of payment, great store of value. So let's see what we have here. Some good ones. So what you need to do if you want to really make this revolution happen is you bring your friends into crypto. Stop asking what Satoshi can do for you. Ask what you can do for Satoshi. Here is part of our team. We're now 500 people strong. And here is how you contact me. Try it out. Let me know how it works. And I would love to hear from you and add you to the Celsius community.
Thanks a lot, Alex. A lot to think about there. That was a really succinct way of putting it at the end, right? Crypto gets a lot of heat because it's still a pretty inefficient source of payment, but a better store of value. I don't think I've ever heard it put like that before, but it does make a lot of because for all the things that crypto can do, in a lot of ways the space is still really inefficient, broadly speaking, right? But
the fees, the transaction fees are very high still. So
right.
If you only have $100, you're not going to pay $40 on the Ethereum network to move stuff around.
Right.
So we need to solve that. It's in the works. ETH 2.0. You got layer 2 solutions and so on. Same thing on Bitcoin. You got different solutions. So I think we just need to get to the point where that is efficient. Until then, most of the applications, 90% of transactions today are for the purposes of acquiring or selling the asset itself. They're not a form of payment. So we just have to admit what it is. But the good news is, again, 200 million users now on the blockchains. So definitely doubled in the last 5 months. So it took us 12 years to get the first 100 million. Took us 5 months to get the next 100 million.
Alex Mashinsky, founder and CEO of the Celsius Network, getting some some suggestions in the chat of token chains you should add to the platform. But thanks a lot, Alex. Great stuff. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
All right.